Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just got back from seeing Gretel and Hansel, starring Sophia Lillis and Alice Cridge, and directed by Oz Perkins. Now, this is a version of the Hansel and Gretel story that doesn't involve Gretel or Hansel being witch hunters, and it's definitely not a short film. It's an 87-minute long horror film that manages to create some rather creepy scares despite the fact that it feels like the film is reaching for its 87-minute runtime. Let's get to the story, shall we? The story follows Hansel and Gretel, an older sister and a younger brother, who, after being forced out of their mother's house, have to find work with these people called the Foresters. On their way there, Hansel insists at stopping near an old house with tons of food, which happens to be the home of a witch named Hulda, played by Alice Cridge. And you can kind of guess the story from there if you've heard of the original tale. Now, this version of Hansel and Gretel expands greatly on the characters of Gretel and Hansel, mainly because Gretel is actually very much the main character of this story. She's definitely the one that drives the plot, she's the one we learn the most about, and she's definitely our guide through most of the film. Hansel definitely seems like more of a side character and more of a distressed boy, if anything, if that makes any sense. Sophia Lillis does a great job with Gretel, really getting you to empathize with her, and for a child actress, she manages to run the gambit when it comes to her emotions. Sammy Leakley does the voice of, and does the performance of Hansel, and it does feel like it's weird how his British accent does come in certain scenes, but since it's his first movie and he's just a young 8-year-old boy, I give him credit for trying as hard as he did, and other than the accent issues, he does manage to deliver a solid performance, but the best performance of the film has to go to Alice Cridge as the witch. This is the same woman who played the Borg Queen in Star Trek First Contact, and she's probably the first witch I've seen in years that legitimately scared me. A classic, pointy hat wearing, luring kids in, ugly as sin witch. And she absolutely revels the role. I mean, in fact, I'd recommend seeing the film just to see her performance, honestly. The film also has a lot of narration in many of the scenes, but it does feel like a lot of that was added in post-production, because there are several scenes in the film that have no dialogue and have a lot of atmosphere. Not to say that all the atmosphere is lost when it comes to the narration, it just feels like some of it does feel unnecessary, especially towards the end. Almost like the filmmakers thought the audience wouldn't get certain scenes unless there was narration. It's used effectively at the beginning, but not so much near the end. And also, certain scenes, such as Gretel's hallucinations and dreams, do feel like they drag on for a little bit. Again, to reach that feature-length runtime. Mainly because when you get down to it, there's not a lot of meat to the story. That's fine for a fairy tale that's only supposed to be a few minutes long, but for an 87-minute film, you can tell they were trying their absolute hardest to make this good idea last through the whole film. Sometimes it works, other times it feels like there's a lot of padding. But regardless, the stuff that works really does work well. Sophia Lillis and Alice Cridge do a great job with their characters. The few other cast members who do show up, especially towards the prologue of the film before they get to the witch's house, are really good. And the film has a lot of scary atmosphere and surprisingly few jump scares, making it for an effective horror film that doesn't rely on cheap tricks. But it does feel like it's a meal that's not very filling. There's a lot of fluff to get to the meat. But when you get to said meat, it is pretty satisfying, and for a January horror film, you can certainly do a lot worse. That's why I'm going to give Gretel and Hansel an 8 out of 10. See you next time.